In relation to Nicholas Carr. Nicholas Carr studied information technology at Harvard University. He is a writer. He writes books and articles focusing on the importance of information technology. He also had a run-in with Wikipedia. On his blog, he was sort of talking about the website, the structure of Wikipedia. The CEO of Wikipedia contacted Nicholas Carr, and together they reformatted the website in a better way. So this is going to be the main idea. Over the past few years, Carr says that my mind is not going so far as I can tell, but it's changing. He thinks that the technology these days is changing the way that we think, especially when it comes to things like reading. He feels disconnected and his mind wanders when he reads. He cannot, reading used to be natural for him, but now it's just a struggle. So he thinks that spending all of his time surfing the internet and reading these short pigments is making our attention spans during reading just fall behind. Then he says, for me, as for others, the net is becoming a universal medium that can do it for most of the information that flows through my eyes and ears and into my mind. So here, all of the different outlets that we get media from, it's just overwhelming. And McLuhan starts to talk about this when he is talking about the numbness that we experience from all this overwhelming technology, and all this media is coming in all these different ways all of the time. So I put this little chart up here, and it shows just some of the ways that media gets into us and what it produces after it does. So then McLuhan talks about Then Carr talks about Marshall McLuhan, who points out that in the 60s, media was not a passive channel for info. They supplied stuff of thought, but they shaped the process of the thought. So this is going to be Carr's main argument, that the media that we are exposed to is shaping the way that we are thinking. For example, not being able to concentrate on deep readings like he used to. He then brings in evidence from Scott Karp, who says, what if I do all my reading on the web, and not so much because of the way I changed, but because of the way that I think has changed. And then there's Bruce Friedman, who says, even a blog post of mere just 3 to 4 paragraphs is too much to absorb. He skims it. So Carr's not the only one who's feeling this. Definitely there are other people out there who agree with Carr. But then there's a response that he talks about in the paper to the University College London study. He responds to this saying, thanks to all the media being everywhere, we may be reading more today than we did when TV was our choice of medium. So then he is kind of counteracting his argument by saying, oh, well, we read more now, but he is saying that we cannot read like the in-depth stories. We just read more smaller things. But then he says, but it's a different kind of reading, and behind it lies a different kind of thinking, perhaps even a new sense of the self. Okay, so this is going to bring us right into almost all of the readings that we've had when it talks about the self. Okay, so we got Marshall McLuhan, who has auto-amputation and the numbness. Kittler, who talks about the self, or the real, which is the self, but Kittler believes that the real can be coded. We'll get more into Haraway in the next coming slides, but she talks about the changing self, changing into the one half, into the group who hasn't been invented yet. And then we have Ong. I put him down from McLuhan because of his study on primary orality. his whole theory. So that'll come up soon. But then he quotes Killer. He says, our writing equipment takes part in the forming of our thoughts. So Kittler is there agreeing with the stuff that Carr is saying. He brings up a supporting fact of Ong's. He quotes, we can expect is that the circuits woven by our use of the net will be different from those woven by our reading of books and other printed works. And this connects to Ong's theory of orality. Here's a picture right here that I got. So this would be like the second, like now, the second orality, secondary. Okay. And then he begins to venture into more of the way of the cyborg by quoting Daniel Bell, intellectual technologies, the tools that extend our mental rather than our physical capacities. We inevitably begin to take on the qualities of those technologies. So he is, in that quote, he is talking about the auto amputation that we get when Carr brings up topics. We also get the cyborg, or the 1.5 machine that Haraway talks about when she supports this idea. But Haraway believes that there's too much human diversity, so that becomes like an issue here for her. So then, if Google is making us stupid, why would we add more? We do not need so much information. Or we do need so much information. Google wants all of the world's information accessible, easily, right at our fingertips. But we can kind of blame technology at this part. It's destroyed the isolation of distance. And that has good and bad consequences, I definitely think. And I think that as of now, we still have not, that would still be part of our like numbness, as McLuhan would say. But it's not that the world has gotten more complicated, but rather the world has become more relevant. More data is accessible to us. It's easily there at our fingertips. Okay, so then we have the issue of algorithms and heuristics. Our brains versus computers or technology. Our brain works with heuristics. Heuristics is like a guessing method of sort. It's not 100% accurate. It's the way that we think as humans. And algorithms is like a sequence mostly used because it's almost 100% accurate. And so like the HAL 9000 would program that with heuristics and algorithms and to make like a supercomputer. But our brain mainly does function on heuristics. An example of this would be Google's search image, or their like front page. The user interface is simplified to make for a more intuitive experience, but involves incredibly complex algorithms to search for the data that you request in the search bar. And all you do is give it a single click, but all this data is just organized by searching precise terms. And also something called fuzzy logic would be like if you search something, it would give you back some things that were similar to your search. Our future in the hands of Google. The company has declared that its mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. It seeks to develop the perfect search engine, which it identifies as something that understands exactly what you mean and gives you back exactly what you want. So this would be Haraway's like perfect world where there's no grouping, there's no judging. Everything gives you back exactly what you want. So that's basically what she is arguing there. Carr agree. Oh, and then we have Kevin Kelly, who in response to Nicholas Carr's website, he also wrote a back article towards Carr, and it's called "Will Google Make Us Smarter?" So you should check that out. And also there's some new inventions from Google that I posted here. But Carr, at the end, to sum everything up, he quotes Clay Shirky, who is someone else I think we may be reading later on. He says most of the arguments made against the printing press were correct. But then again, the doomsdayers were unable to imagine the blessings that the printing press would deliver. So those people like Carr who are looking at this technology, like making us not be able to read as well people still thought about that when the printing press came out. So he is Carr would be considered one of the doomsdayers that Shirky talks about. But still, their easy assumption that we'd all be better off and our brains were supplemented. That's a Google thought. But Carr says that artificial intelligence is unsettling to him. He suggests a belief that intelligence is the output of the mechanical process, a series of discrete steps that can be isolated, measured, and optimized.